So next week, you're going to go right past Charleston and go to the beach.
Are you in Charleston?
I'm going to go to Charleston next week, yeah. I'm going to be there all week. And Gardner's coming down for the run, Greg Gardner.
Oh, yeah. You know, I always talk about doing that, and I keep forgetting. Now that we got a place there.
Anyway, I'm there. I'll be with my brother-in-law.
Staying at the house, at the radio station?
Yeah, at the radio station. WTOM.
WTOM.
Well, anyway. So today, we've talked about many things here on the podcast, Marty, you and I, over the years. But today I want to talk about buying and selling businesses. Mm-hmm. Particularly tech businesses, but it could be any business. You and I have been mostly in tech.
Yeah. Service businesses.
Service business. Service, it's a tech service.
Tech service.
Yeah. I think there's just so many opportunities. One of them is for someone who has, lucky enough to have a tech business, who eventually wants to sell it. You know, you've started a business to help them prepare to sell it.
Correct.
Maybe 5 years from now, whenever the right time is.
Whenever the right time is. Because the problem is most people, when they get ready to sell, it's almost that knee-jerk reaction, and they haven't done the things yet to sell. It's almost like selling your house, where you just one day say, I'm selling my house.
You didn't cut the grass.
Haven't cut the grass, haven't painted, house is a mess, right?
Yeah.
You know values are going to be less. You're unprepared for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think one of the things we can talk about, too, as part of this process is some of the challenges with that. Mm-hmm. Because I think in the selling side, what we also find is the number one reason why a business never sells is because the owner's not ready to sell. Yeah. And that's what happens is they think they are, and then when they get to that point, they either, A, don't understand the deal dynamics and finances, you know, and that happened to me. We got ready to sell the first time, and I ran the math. I mean, it's just a math number, and I realized, well, let me get this straight. So we make this. I split it with my partners. Oh, wait, Uncle Sam's a partner, so they get their cut. And I'm like, I can't retire on that.
Wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough because when you realize you get the money, there's sort of a thing called the 4% rule that says, you know, based on the money you have at 4%, that's what you need to live on.
Right.
So if you're trying to retire, you need 4%. And if you don't have it, then you back out.
I think that's an important number to talk about for a second, is to figure out, if you're an owner, to figure out what is your number. Like, you know, and the 4% rule, this will blow people's minds if they hadn't heard it before. But if you have hey, I got $1 million, I'm a millionaire.
I'm a millionaire.
Right? That means you got $40,000 pre-tax
that you have to live on.
That you have to live on. So maybe that's $32,000 or something.
Right.
So that means you got $32,000 a year, which is generally not enough. So you're going to need more than 1 million, you know. I don't know how many million people would need, but it's probably more like, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 to get to that, you know, a reasonable yearly number. I don't know, whatever the number is. Maybe live in the woods, maybe one's enough.
I don't know. But I think you have to understand that. And I think as part of that selling process is you have to understand personally, hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, most people wake up every day and you're like, so John, what are you going to do when you sell your business? And they're like, we're going to build a house in Colorado and we're going to go live in the mountains. And you're like, have you ever done that before? They're like, no, but it'll be great.
Yeah.
And then they get out there 3 months in, they realize this sucks.
People ought to have a trial run on whatever they think their retirement is.
Yes.
I want to fish every day. We'll try that for a couple of weeks.
I tried. I'm sucking. I think we've had this conversation. I tried to be a fisherman. It didn't work.
Yeah. I tried to retire once. Of course, when we sold the business together, they kicked me out. I mean, you stayed for a while. So they retired me.
Yes.
So I wasn't retired on purpose, but I didn't know what to do. I'd wake up, you know, whenever I woke up and just kind of drink some coffee and then like, well, I'm going to go hit some balls by myself. You know, it's like, ugh, I didn't have a good plan.
No. And that's the hardest part is what do we want to do personally? And then it's back to the finance side is financially can you do it? Even at $5 million, right? People get really excited to sell the business, and I sell my business for $5 million at 4%. That's $200,000 a year. So, but yet, if you look at their lifestyle, they're like, I can't live on that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there is that battle. And so, to me, selling the business, what we're trying to do is, one, get them personally prepared. And then two is get the business prepared. Because, again, if you think about the math, and this is the other part I like to talk about, is valuations is quite simple. I mean, it's simple math. Yeah. It's EBITDA, right? So what is a company making times some multiple? Yeah. And different industries are going to get different multiples. Quality of the business, quality of the customers, drives the multiples. So if you're making, let's again say $1 million a year, EBIT, a multiplier might be 4x. So that's 4 million. But if you do some things like, for instance, if the owner's too involved in the business and they're there every day, they're all excited like I'm the hero. Right. But nobody's going to buy that, so your multiplier is going to be less. If you can step back, you have a sales team, you have good customer base, you might get 6. So that 1 million isn't 4, it's 6 million. Right. So to me, that's where helping people understand value and then getting that business prep for it. Now, my guess is you probably don't like to see me on the other side of the table.
Well, it depends. I like dealing with people that I know and I trust. I mean, I would feel like we could at least be honest with each other if we were negotiating. But I would think you would have fixed the business. That's right. And so I wouldn't be buying something that was all messed up. You would have gotten the numbers right and the owner's ready to move away and all those things. And so it's probably worth more money.
Right. And I'm glad you said that because that's where I was going to go. Because people think it's like businesses aren't like real estate where you want to buy that dilapidated and fix it up. People who buy businesses don't want to fix them. Right. What they want is a good ongoing operation. And so, we talk to a lot of acquirers and we always said, don't give us your yeses, give us your nos. Because we like working on the nos because there's a reason the deal didn't go through that I think we can fix.
So what's the name of your new business?
So the new business is called By Design Advisors. Yeah. And as you know, my favorite word is intentionality.
Intentionality, yes.
And I believe everything we need to do is intentional. And so when I was thinking about the new name, it just things is everything needs to be done by design. Yeah. And
is it B-U-Y?
It is not. It's B-Y. We thought that'd get a little too confusing, but...
So if you're a business owner, you would hire Marty's company. Probably they're going to pay you a monthly retainer to help them just every month make the business a little more valuable, a little more sellable over time. And whether you want to sell it in 6 months or 3 years or don't even know when you want to sell it. Builder Marts of America, which is a company that sold years ago, but was in Greenville, they did. They were a national distributor of lumberyard kind of products, lumber and stuff like that. And they got up to, I think, close to $1 billion in revenue over a 20-year run. And one of the things their CEO did, he was a very smart man, is he would bring somebody like you in every year, and they would do a full audit of the business. What's it worth now? And then tell us what to do to make it worth more.
Right.
And then so the management team, it was almost like preparing to sell every year. Yeah. And then they would have all year to make it better. And they ended up selling it for $500 million. So it worked pretty well.
I think it's a great process. And, one of the things is we started getting in working with companies. The number one, it's funny, the reason we think companies struggle is they struggle in execution. And that's one of the biggest things that we work with organizations. And for instance, I will say this, and I think we've talked about this, is we'll sit down in that first 90 days that we work in our initial engagement, and we'll sit down and find out strategically what are 3 objectives that in the next 90 days, if you could accomplish, would move the business forward.
Right.
And so we look at what's working, what's broken, what's missing.
Yeah.
We've talked about this as to ultimately 3 things of what's broken and missing. We can pick 3. And if you could just focus on those 3, you're going to move the business. But we'll be a week out, a day out, and they'll already add 3 more things, 4 more things. And what happens is everybody tries to get too much done and they end up getting nothing done. And so what separates, I think, good businesses from great businesses is that relentless execution, that key to executing. And so what we try to do is help with that culture of getting involved in every 90 days, moving that ball.
I like that. On the other side of the table, I've started a company, as you know, called Sterling Ventures Group. And we're buying technology companies. And we've got 2 now, 2 software companies. And we're trying to find people that own the tech companies that typically have had them for a long time, lots of good customers, but they're ready to move on. They're ready to retire.
Yeah.
And I have found, this could be a lead for either one of us, but when I find one of these people, they generally would like to sell it, but maybe they're not big enough to sell to a traditional buyer, like a private equity company or a strategic buyer. And so I try to say, I've got, a lot of experience in software. I've got people kind of on the bench I can put in to help run software companies, and I'll structure a deal, that'll be good for both of us. So I help them get out a different way than you do. So maybe we could do a 1-2 punch sometime.
Well, I love what you're doing because we're in this era now where there's so many baby boomers that have had businesses and that they're kind of at the end of their line. And it's almost like every day they dread going to work.
Yeah.
Because the model's changing, people are changing.
Right.
Return to work, not return to work, like all these issues that are no longer fun for them.
Right.
And so there's a ton of businesses that are looking owners to get out.
Right.
And so for you to come in and say, I can bring new life to the business. So you might buy a business that has $500,000 and just in EBITDA, and just through renewed marketing, through selling, which you know so well, building a sales team, doing a few things, you can turn around and take this product and make it easily $1 million.
Yeah.
And again, if you have 5 times for that 500,000 times 5, that's 2.5 million in value you've created.
Right.
Really, quite simply, just through processes.
Right.
So I think it really is great for both parties.
I do too. And we, we structure it in a way where the owner and I have to really trust each other, because it's going to be a couple of year agreement where they're going to stick around and help us and get there. So anyway, that thing for me, it kind of stemmed from, I tried to sell a business, and my business was too small to really get any serious attention. And I said, well, I bet there's a lot of other people like that.
Yeah. There's a ton of them. I mean, it's a ton. And it's actually funny is on our podcast, so we have a podcast by Design Advisor.
Yeah.
And we actually had a former employee of mine on, and he ended up with the company that acquired us. He stayed on for a year, and then they decided they didn't need HR. So he gets, I don't know what you would call it, displaced, or what's the cool word now? Like he was set free.
Set free.
He was set free.
Okay.
And so he was working on a business model, and somebody came to him and said, you know a lot about business and people. I know about investment. He goes, we should buy a car wash. And he went, oh, okay. And so they looked and they found somebody who was trying to sell a car wash. And by cleaning it up, fixing it up, started making money. They bought another one. And he was like, it's pretty easy. This is kind of simple.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want to buy another business. Yeah. So he started looking around and he found a printing company.
Yeah.
And the printing company, basically the owner, he just wanted out. He was tired.
Right.
And the price he was selling, probably the land was worth that. And again, you've talked about this, is he wants out, owner financing, paid him off over 3 years. And now he stepped in. They had a really good leadership team, but the owner never let them shine because he was that, you know,
he was the guy.
He was the guy. He was the hero of the
Yeah,
story. And
yeah.
so he bought this business, saw a good team,
Yeah.
took over. He doesn't spend time in it. It's doubled its volume now in already a year.
Yeah.
And it's just been phenomenal for them. So their business is like that all over the place.
Right. Yeah. You're right. I was going to ask you where your leads and my leads are about the same. We want to talk to the same people.
Yeah.
Where are you finding your leads? How are they finding you?
Well, a couple of different ways. One of the places we're finding them in our case is with private wealth managers.
Okay.
So if you think about some statistics, and these are a little scary, but 90% of most people's net worth is tied up in their company. Mm-hmm. And that 80% of these companies never transact. Mm-hmm. So we have all these assets tied up, yet they don't transact. Yeah. And so what's happening now is people with businesses working with their wealth advisors, like saying, if you sold this and did the right thing, then you would now have money and I can help you retire. So they go hand in hand. And so a lot of them are coming who have clients that have so much tied up in the business. Yeah. They want to maximize that value so that they can retire properly. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the number one place that we're getting leads for these businesses. The second one, as I said, it's a lot within the private equity world. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, we have a former colleague who's in that world, and he says they look at about 120 deals a year to buy 3. Mm-hmm. Well, I want the 117 other, right? Because they've said no to the people. So these people are looking to sell, but they got said no to. So to me, that's an opportunity, is how can we turn those no's into yeses?
Okay, that's good. Well, quid pro quo, I'm getting my leads from my network of people that I know that are in the business. Todd Lorbach's one of them. You know, he's a broker up in the Northwest. He brought me a deal that I bought, which is kind of cool. And then I spend time on all the internet biz buy sell thing, biz buy sell, Flippa, Quorum. There's a whole bunch of them, and so those are really fun. I mean, there's so much fun. There's so many businesses. I with my entrepreneurial self, every one of them, I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Marty and I could do wonders with this one.
Oh my gosh!
And then I've got this guy who helps me that is like a part-timer who's got a lot of experience doing deals, and he's just like, I met with him this morning. He's just like, nope. I mean, just.
Which is what you really need.
I need it. I was so thankful, but I had like 7 times, they got 17 good ones. And he was just like, he narrowed it down to 2 that we're going to go after. But, one of them was a SaaS product for people who do like almost the gypsies at the circus, who have the food markets and stuff like that. I'm like, that's a good niche. And he's like, how are you going to reach them, John? I mean, there's no list of these people. So I'm getting them from the network and from the websites, and I talk to all these different brokers, which is part of that's an education as you see more deals. But I'm starting to look for some of the AI tools. I had a demo recently where they figure out exactly what you want, and they start to pulse. It's not a call; it's like a AI based outreach on LinkedIn Navigator, just seeing, would you, blah, 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 we see you do this. Would you like to have a call? Yeah. Just trying to schedule discovery calls.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, right? Yeah. It was funny, with Dale, my partner, our analogy is fishing. Mm-hmm. You can buy the best boat, get all the right gear.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where the fish are, you could sit out there all day long with poles in the water. And so one of the hardest things, and this is, I think, ties back to sales, is it's understanding where the sweet spots are. Where are the honey holes? And where are the people that own businesses hang out? And so, that's something we're learning and spending time with, trying to figure that out. But, the business brokers have them. Like I said, the private equity guys, the wealth managers. And then you just like, again, LinkedIn, you just kind of cast your net, you put a bunch of lines in the water and, somebody, nibbles and you're there. And my question, it's kind of interesting, is how many do you think you have to look at before you actually find one? That's the.
I mean, to review their P&Ls, review their numbers, have a couple of calls. I think my numbers are probably 40 to 1.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But I am getting better about knowing what I'm looking for. Before, I mean, again, car washes would be great, but I don't want to go into that business because I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I'd be starting as a noob. What should it be per this, and how old are the brushes, and all those things that we know about software. We know how to value a software business. It's not.
But I think business, and money, and cash flow. What's actually interesting, I saw a LinkedIn post, and I had to bring this up, and they wrote about AI, and they said the A stands for access. Everybody's like, oh, AI is going to take our job. AI is going to do this. What really AI has done for us is give us access to information. We've taken company financials. We've taken a business we knew nothing about, a flooring business, and we took the numbers and dropped it in ChatGPT and said, tell me what you think. And we're like, comes back with all this stuff. Right. And as a business person, it's really the sales, it's marketing, it's, cost. I think listening to your son Jack talk earlier, about business people, the hardest thing that people have, I think in business, there are two places they fall down are sales and marketing. And who knows that better than you? Or people who can help you, because people think they open up a shingle, I buy a business, and everybody just comes in the door.
I know. Yeah, and that leads me right into what I want to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. But I have another business that we started years ago, where that is exactly what we do. Sterling Sales is we help people. I kind of changed a little bit what I say it is. Now I tell owners, I'm helping you build a scalable sales team. Okay, a scalable sales team. And what I find, the reason I do it is I like doing it for one thing. I like talking to an owner about building sales and training salespeople. I enjoy all of that. I learn from doing it. Sometimes I run across opportunities from doing it. So there's multiple reasons. But most of the companies that hire me, the biggest thing I can help them with is understanding a hiring model for what kind of salespeople they need. most people, it's not funny, Marty, most people hire the same kind of people I hired when I started. I didn't know what I was doing. And it was the person that seemed like a nice person, we'll give them a chance. She did a good job at reception, we'll give her a chance. Whatever the give her a chance, give him a chance thing was. And you end up with people that aren't well suited to do this job function.
Right.
And then we complain about it. Marty won't make enough calls every day.
Shocking.
Yeah. So Marty's a bad guy. John, you got to make Marty make more calls. Right. Yep. And so that goes on company after company after company. And so to help them create a perfect avatar of what does the right salesperson look like, and then go find them. And then after that, comp plans and territory planning and all that stuff, it's like having the good boat.
Yeah.
We help them with the good boat later. But let's find out where the fish are.
Right. So I talk about this in my book, and I start out, it's the second key. So I say there's 5 keys to becoming the leader people are happy to see. Is number 1 is it's your team, don't leave it to chance. And I start out with saying, first and foremost, most of us as entrepreneurs or business leaders suck at hiring. We suck at it. And the reason we suck at it is because we think it's our gut. It's intuition. I just feel it. Problem is, it's not intuition. It's because we don't want to spend the time. We just want somebody in that seat going.
It's work.
Yeah. And so we hire that person too fast, too quick.
Yeah.
You've had a sales job. If we really looked at it, he's had 7 jobs. He's never really sold. And when his quota money runs out or his
Draw,
draw
yeah,
runs out,
yeah.
he moves on.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that I think what you've done, back to intentionality, is you sit them back and you define that avatar, you test them. Like, you're just like me, is I believe that we should never hire a person without testing them.
Me too.
Ever.
Me too. Me too.
Ever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because
Yeah.
we'll explain it, we'll lay it out, and they'll be like, it makes sense. And then they'll hire somebody, and I'll be, did you test them? And I'll be like, no.
No.
And I'd be like, well, so how'd that work out? Didn't work out too well. Because I still am struggling with why we keep going back to the herd. Like, we keep not trying to stick out. We don't try to stand out. And to me,
It's hiring.
it's hard. It's work.
I'm helping one of my companies, or one of my consulting companies, hire a couple of new salespeople. And the last 3 people I interviewed had already been vetted by the sales manager. Liked them. I really liked them. I liked them. They were very nice. They were on time. They wore suits. Okay. And then we tested them. I'm like, no, I don't like them.
And they're like, yeah, but no, like, we are who we are.
Yeah.
And, what was it? Jim Collins said, we need to get the right person and the right seat on the bus.
Yeah.
He never tells you what right is.
Right.
And to me, right is starting to test people. And I actually got asked at our church to be on a call committee for a job.
Yeah.
And I really felt like my role was to slow the team down, because I know what's going to happen. They get excited. They really like somebody, and they start using phrases like, well, it's in trouble.
Yeah, well.
He's really a good person. And they start, basically, they take somebody who's not a fit for the job and they try to talk themselves in why. Yeah. And then they hire that person, and then 3 months later, they're like, we shouldn't have done that. And so to me, one of my roles is A, slow down, take your time. B is understand their personality. And so I laid out like the disc. I'm a big disc person. And so it's easy. It's D is decisiveness. I is interactive. The higher is a FOMO. S is the higher you are on S, you really like rules and stability. Lower is independent. And C is cautious. Rule followers, that kind of stuff. And so I looked at them, I said, in this role, what's the most important thing? And they said, they need to be able to just talk to people, meet people. So high I is like a rule. So if you're not a high I, so we sit down and the first interview goes, and I'd say, how would you explain yourself as a person? And he'd say, I'm kind of an introvert. I don't really like talking to people. And it was like everybody on the committee just went, they knew it because I set it up. Like now in their mind, at the end, they really liked the guy, and he was a really good guy and super skilled. Yeah. But he's an introvert.
Not for that job.
Not for that job.
Yeah.
So I think those are important. And I also think that in these personality tests, they also go back to buying and selling businesses, because to me, I think even before you buy a business, if somebody's going to be in charge or there's a leadership team, I would test them.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have enough time to figure out who they are.
Right.
And so through these assessments, you start to find out who your detail people are, your checklist people, your galvanizers are, your inventors. So
your troublemakers.
Your troublemakers, exactly.
Well, I agree. And so the test I like is Kolbe, KOLBE.com. And we typically give that test to somebody kind of as a last step. If we really think we like them, we'll give them the test, because the test costs money. It costs like, less than $100, but we don't want to give it out to 50 people, And yours is the disc you use a lot. I'm familiar with the disc, but I think it's kind of whatever you get used to. And I've seen so many Kolbe scores, and I relate them to certain people.
Yep.
And the other thing is people sometimes push back and go, well, that's not fair. You tested someone and gave them a test and you didn't hire them. Like, it's not fair is to hire someone and put them in the wrong job.
Yeah.
And have them fail.
And fail.
Yeah.
And then having coaching calls and then turn them loose. And again, most of the time when people we let go, they're not bad people. Mm-hmm. They're not bad people. They're just in the wrong job. And unfortunately, when people are looking for a job, we tend to want it, right? There's something I can't have, so I want it. Mm-hmm. And when we sit down with the test and we sit down with the assessment and we talk through it, we've had people go, you know what, this isn't the job for me. Because they realize about themselves is they're not a galvanizer like me, or they're not a person who or a high quick starter in the Colby, and that's what's required. And they realize every day they got to make 50 phone calls. They'll be like, oh, that's just.
Well, on the other hand, when I was getting out of school, through my dad, I got an interview with the head of sales for Michelin. Yeah, Michelin. And I thought, well, this is going to be good, This is big time. So I go up there to the headquarters and meet with him. And I'm like, of course, I was all crazy. I'm like, whoa, what kind of training program do we have? He goes, well, it's like 2 years of training. I'm like, what? Yeah, 2 years. We'll train you up real good over 2 years. Just training. Yes, sir. All right. Then what? Then where would I go? And he goes, probably start you in a small market, maybe like Dubuque, Iowa. Be out there for a while. I said, okay, that's fine. How much commission would I make selling these tires? He goes, we don't do it that way, Michelin. It's a salary job. We want you to. And I just kept kind of slinking lower and lower in my chair. And finally he's like, John, I don't get the feeling you want this job. And I'm like, you got it. This is not a good match for me.
This is not a good match.
Oh,
and
my God.
By the way, that's actually the perfect interview.
Yeah.
Because you both came to the right conclusion.
An honest discussion,
and fair. And so, I think that sort of coaching to the entrepreneur, to the owner, to the sales manager, because they want to get that off their plate. They want that person in selling, and in their mind, they see this person bringing them money, just bringing them revenue.
Yeah.
And then they realize month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, there's no revenue, and now they're starting to get mad, and then they lash out. They, like, you're not, you suck, you're not a good person, all these things.
You got to make more cold calls.
You're not, and instead of owning it, saying, you know what, we made a mistake. And so I think that's so valuable.
It is so valuable. So you've written a book, and the book did very well.
It's doing okay. Yeah. It's hanging in there.
Tell us about the book and how it's doing, and tell us about your speaking.
One of the things, I think we laughed in one of the earlier sessions we talked when I told you I was writing a book, and you got all fired up, and you're like, I'm going to beat this guy, and you actually beat me to the punch getting your book out. And I remember one of the things that you said was, once you put the book out into the universe, the universe starts to speak back. People are calling you and doing it. And so to me, one of the exciting things is getting the book out. Is that people read it, and now they're starting to call, they're starting to interact. And so one of the things that I've always loved to do, and I've done it for a long time, is do speaking engagements, working with leadership teams, trying to teach something new. And so, I've gotten in the last, I guess, 2 months, I've got 4 speaking gigs, and, each one comes with a stack of books. So they want all their attendees to get a book. And I had one conference, it was 300 books.
Wow.
And I got a picture, books stacked up, signing away.
Did you sign them at the event?
No, because the problem is you can't sign 300 books.
It takes too long.
Takes too long. Yeah. So I pre-sign them all.
Okay.
And so, I write my message and sign it, stack it, and it's just, I have signing days. And so but it's fun. It's, really is hearing parts of the book that get people excited, that stand out to them, and different things speak to different people. So that's been super exciting, and like I said, I love just being in front of people and sharing.
You're great at it. You're a great speaker.
But
I had I met with a business owner like 2 years ago. Went by his house, just met him for the second time, and we talked about his business and stuff. And we really never got around to a pitch. I never felt it was appropriate to really pitch him. He was just talking and talking. But I did leave a book. I didn't even tell him I left it. And I put a little note there to him. And about 6 months later, he called me. Hadn't talked to him since that day. And he goes, I was watching your book for a while. I wonder what you left it for. He says, it's after about 4 months, I figured I'd read it. And he read the book, and then he called me, and he hired me.
Yeah.
But now he's like, he knows the book far better than I know it.
Yeah.
Because we'll be talking about what we're doing with the comp plan or something, and say, that's not what your book says,
You're
So,
like, oh,
where's that book? Let me check that
I
out.
gotta go put that in AI and ask that question.
But you leverage your book more for speaking, and I leverage mine more for like team coaching stuff.
Yeah. Well, they have different roles and different things, but it's fun to get something out. I tell you, the fun thing I'm starting to do and is like when I go skiing or I go stay in an Airbnb, is I always sign a book to the owner. And then, they have a shelf of books. I start sticking my book into their shelf. I leave it on their coffee table. I even started leaving books like in the crown room at Delta when I'm traveling and just say, enjoy.
That's a great idea.
And just, you never know where you're going to get a lead. Somebody picks it up. Somebody reads it. Somebody passes it along. But one thing I want to bring up, and it was actually interesting, and we were talking kind of earlier about buying businesses and stuff. And I work a lot with entrepreneurs and startup businesses. And I've always said the hardest thing is in starting a business from scratch with an idea tech. I say it's like pushing a train up a hill, right? Because you're just pushing that train, and at any moment you run out of money, you don't have a sale, something, that train's going to run you over. And I almost think it's crazy because people are always trying to raise money and like all that stuff. And I was telling you this story, and we were sitting one day on a walk, resting, and you made a comment. You said, who's got it right?
Who was it?
The hobo.
The hobo, that's right.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
So you're like, the hobo got it right. Because the train's moving.
Just gets on the train.
And then you jump on the train and it takes off.
Yeah,
And we said, and I started thinking about, like, that's like the greatest analogy is the hobo is a high opportunity,
business.
It's a hobo.
High opportunity.
Oh, I know. High opportunity business ownership.
Business ownership, okay.
And so to me, one of the things that was cool about buying businesses too is if you're a young entrepreneur or you really want to own your own business or run it, working with you where you might find a business that you share something and then you would drop them in to own it. Because to me, sometimes finding, like my buddy who bought that printing company, that's a hobo.
Yeah, definitely.
The hobo is he found a train, it was moving, but it was slow.
Yeah.
He jumped on, and now he's doubling and tripling sales and creating better customer service. And so I've always loved that model, and I think about that all the time about the hobo is that sometimes we think entrepreneur is starting from scratch, getting an idea, writing code, writing checks, when in actuality, you could probably get into a business.
Well, I'll give you some examples from my life so far. Is the Voltrac business that we bought last year is software for hospital volunteer management.
Yeah.
Very specific niche. And they have 144 customers, so hospitals across the country that use this for all their volunteers. And I bought it, and the owner, didn't have to pay very much up front. It was a couple years to pay it off, 3 years. And I was able, because I already have people doing, customer service and billing and technology stuff already on the payroll, I was able to cut the expenses, and then I turned around and raised the prices.
Yep.
And so immediately, we created value in that business. But I didn't have to write a business plan. I didn't have to go raise money. I didn't have to go find the first customer.
Right.
Talk someone into coming to join me in this crazy, venture. And so that's an example of finding the hobo situation. Another one, believe it or not, is DataStream. Most people think that was a startup. It wasn't a startup. Larry bought that business from some big company that was ready to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And as tiny as it was, when I joined them, there was $30,000 a month in revenue. There was, 18 customers. There was leads coming in.
Yeah.
There was 4 people working there. So it was like we just needed to work it from there. forward.
I think it's I think that hobo model and that thought about it it really has merit to what's going on and what people can do, because you bring that new set of energy to basically that train that's not moving that fast, and then you give it that energy and it just takes off.
Right.
So
we're going to start a hobo business. I don't know.
Well, it's the Hobo Fund. So, yeah, the thought was, the new idea, and we're launching it here on Noob School. First time only is the Hobo Fund.
You can be a hobo.
You can be a hobo. And if you want to run a business, come find one with you. We'll help you finance it. And
so Marty and I, just for the record, we're both looking for the same person. we want a tech company, not too small, not too big, probably around here would be better. It could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere.
So the owner should contact both of us. And
they can start with you, John, and then I'll help you. But either one.
Either way. Anyway, maybe we'll just put them right in the Hobo Fund.
Yeah.
But anyway, Marty, is there anything else you want to talk about today?
No, that was it. It's always exciting being here.
I love having you here, and I love talking about the buying and selling businesses. I think I'm getting more and more, questions from Noob School on that subject. So hopefully you can come back and we can talk some more soon. If anybody wants a damn good speaker for your user groups or national sales meetings, Marty would be the man.
Yeah, you can get me at marty@martyosborn.com. It's simple.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it. You're the man.
Good to see you.